Really appreciate the invite from you, Mark, and the OTT.X team to participate in our event today. And as you said, I am the moderator for our panel on the future of content. I am actually Research Director at Parks Associates, a Dallas, Texas-based market research and consulting firm. We've been in the emerging technology space for nearly 35 years, and we cover all sectors of that market. I oversee our entertainment research practice, which covers areas such as OTT, pay TV, mobile, broadband, consumer electronic devices, among other topics in the entertainment ecosystem. And today we'll be covering in our 45 minutes or so together, kind of the evolution of content, where it's come from, where it's going during this OTT era, and where it's headed from here. What are the innovations that we're going to see? Is it AR? Is it VR? Is it 3D? Long form versus short form? And to help me navigate through this huge topic is an esteemed panel. I'd like to introduce one by one, and just for each of you, just give a brief introduction of your name, title, organization, and anything else you wanted to add, and then we'll launch into our discussion. So let's start with Gail Gilman from Snarled. Gail.
Good morning. Hello. My name is Gail Gilman, and I'm the CEO of Snarled Entertainment. Snarled Entertainment creates videos and podcasts that we distribute across a wide variety of social media and OTT platforms. I have been a producer, showrunner, and broadcast executive, and then about 4 years ago launched my own company into this space and am building content brands across platforms of my own and growing audiences in lots of places. And I've found OTT is kind of the new frontier, the next frontier for us. So I'm excited to be here and be part of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Appreciate it. Next, we have James Moore from Xperi. James.
Good morning, everybody. Hope you don't mind the dark background, but with my gray hair and light skin,
it looks good.
The lighter background, I kind of disappeared. So I'm James Moore. I'm the Senior Director of Streaming Solutions at Xperi. We're a technology company with a family of brands, DTS, now TiVo very recently, IMAX Enhanced, HD Radio. Essentially, a big part of what we do, if not the vast majority of it, is the technology aspect of bringing media to consumers, theaters, etc. So I'll stop there and let the others speak.
Awesome, James. Appreciate it. Next, we have Nick Crooks from Wave.tv. Nick, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm currently the head of strategic partnerships and business development for Wave TV. Wave is a sports media network with digital native fans geared towards Gen Z discovery. We have a footprint of about 60 million fans across social platforms, views per month, with over 60 rights holders. So with those rights holders, we develop new programming, IP, that are platform specific. So currently I work with all the major platforms, Facebook, Snap, IG, TikTok, YouTube, and that's it.
Great, thanks, Nick. Welcome. Next, we have Javon Frazier from Studio 71. Javon.
Hello, everybody. Javon Frazier, primarily work with a company called Studio 71 that has about 1,300 talent channels across all social media platforms, and it does about 10 billion views a month. My focus is slightly different than probably the others on the panel, and that my focus is on creating products with that talent. So actual physical product, which has become increasingly more popular now that we're all at home. So really have done really well in the board game space and the physical game space, tied to streaming. So when we talk about the ecosystem of streaming, I'd love to talk about how we integrate physical products into that overall ecosystem.
Great. Thanks, Javon. Appreciate it. And last but not least, we have Jake Hurst from Premier Digital. Jake, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Jake Hurst, Director of Growth and Business Development at Premier Digital. Premier is a media services and technology solution partner for the entertainment industry, working with content owners and platforms. We started in 2008 at the advent of transactional and the iTunes movie store. So we've seen a ton of growth where we both provide media services to help our clients and content partners get their content and monetize up on the various platforms, digital distribution, and we also build software as a service products to streamline operations and help everyone keep up and take advantage of all the innovation and excitement in the industry. So really proud to be here with my fellow panelists and excited to talk about the future of content.
Thanks, Jake. Appreciate it. Thanks for everyone's introductions. Hopefully now that you got to meet our panel and understand where they're coming from, we're going to launch into our discussion. Obviously, we're covering a wide swath of content from short form. We have sports, we have the theater experience, we have audio, we have gaming, we have a variety of different areas. So before we look at the future, I want to kind of step back to the evolution and before. So let's go back maybe 10 years or so. Since this is an OTT-centered event, let's go back 10 years when OTT era unofficially began, 10 years or so. From each of your perspectives as it relates to content, what were the industry trends and consumer trends that you were following to help you form kind of the content, form the content for the organizations that you work for? So what were the things in the market going on from a consumer and industry standpoint that kind of shaped content from 10 years ago up until this point? Let's start with James.
Okay, spinning up the Wayback Machine.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, 10 years ago, I think we were, streaming kind of beyond the world of consumer-generated content like YouTube was really finding its place. HD resolution was really kind of becoming standard, and the push to get HD content over streaming at a high enough quality was really there. We were finally starting to see the internet bandwidth be there. And then the devices were also starting to come along. So the concept of a smart TV versus just a display with speakers was starting to become much more common at the time. It was still a time period where there were many different streaming formats that were all, so many of them were proprietary, different digital rights management systems. There was not the EMA metadata spec that we have today that unified how avails information, et cetera, were being distributed. But it was very clear that the future was the internet and the streaming of content.
Okay, Nick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts go back to YouTube exactly. Pretty much came up with YouTube Premium when YouTube dumped $100 million into the market to kind of develop what we now know as premium, and it's very normal and it's what's expected. We've come a long way since then. The expectations are now through the roof. We expect Infinity War to be made in our living rooms and then to be watched in our living rooms. So that's kind of my view on kind of where we are.
Okay, Javon?
Yeah, I mean, seeing the evolution of the business, I think obviously, direct to consumer, which everyone has probably talked about for the last 2 days. I think the thing that kind of tied me in was not 10 years ago, but was 4 years ago. I saw the evolution of a child product that I love so much, Reading Rainbow, the Kickstarter, where they were going to actually take that to kind of an interactive version on a direct-to-consumer platform that did, the Kickstarter did $5.4 million, and it was amazing and kind of got me excited about Kickstarter as a platform, which frankly has been my primary way to kind of bridge direct-to-consumer. So I think one of the things that is interesting and some of the things that I've been doing over the last 5 years is really expediting that direct-to-consumer experience via content using platforms like Kickstarter, where you can start to meld the two to actually create innovative products delivering for fans.
Great. Gail, what are your thoughts on where we've come from in content?
Yeah, well, 10 years ago, I remember having a day when it was like lightning struck me, and I was working in television and Netflix. So when someone asked them what they were watching on the TV, and they said Netflix, and then they were naming the shows, and they didn't know names of television channels.
Right.
And I thought, I need to get out and move on before I can become a dinosaur and everything moves on without me. And that was really for me when I began to look at other, the internet was like Nick said a few minutes ago, it was about YouTube, and it was really about looking into that kind of new world. And so I just moved really quickly at that time, started talking to Yahoo about what they were doing in video, and then working with YouTube, and then beginning to do some branded content. And it was just kind of that journey from thinking about, television to thinking about how else can I distribute the content that I make and make content for all these new platforms. And those two kind of things really kind of sparked my kind of the traditional television production altogether, and working with YouTube and building my own audiences and my own brands across first YouTube, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, all of the platforms that are out there now. And then realizing that once you could build on those platforms to find your audience, you could also build your own audiences by starting channels with OTT. So it was just that kind of, for me, it's been that journey that started I think it was just about 10 years ago exactly. So I think it's very exciting because it's really kind of limitless now. And as a creator and a creative person, you are always confined, I felt, by the parameters and the gatekeepers. And that is a different world now out there. So it's been really incredibly exciting for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, time flies.
Time flies, exactly.
Jake, what are your thoughts to round out this part of the discussion?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I echo a lot of what everyone said. I mean, I think as a consumer 10 years ago, it was YouTube, it's Netflix, it's, I think, like maybe the early days of Twitch and some of these live gaming platforms that have proliferated and only grown. As it relates to Premiere, I mean, that was early days of our company, right? And our founder, Eric, and some of our executives were in that space, right, of recognizing, okay, we're now allowing people to rent and download movies. And how does that work? What formats are needed? What file types? What are the processes? What are the standards? How do we actually get the bits and packets from one part of, one system to another? And I think that has served us well, right? And it allowed us to, build strength in the industry where we can continue to grow as trends continue to change, right? And I think that's the one constant we can all rely on, is that things are going to continue to change when new technologies and things continue to evolve, things we've never even imagined. Content will follow and open up new doors for us to all take advantage of. And it's exciting to think about. It's exciting to be a part of it. And that, as these new upstarts and new technologies come into play, the need for solutions, for partners, for services to support those become more and more evident.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. As we look towards the future, I just wanted to stop at one point. So currently in the market, and we at Parks, we track the consumer OTT market a lot, uptake of OTT services from subscription, ad-based, transactional, YouTube, all different social sources, and so forth. And it said at this point in history, consumers have access to more online content than ever before, and quality content from a variety, from a number of sources that they never had access before, which is obviously great from a positive standpoint. From a negative or a challenging standpoint, consumers have to navigate through all that to get to the content they really want to watch, right? So you see the advent of aggregation platforms like an Amazon channels, or aggregation services, or even a Comcast X1. You see consumers taking it upon themselves to try to aggregate content, and there's been a lot of vendors and so forth, and technology companies trying to help with that process. So from all your different interesting and varied perspectives, currently, how from a content distribution and content creation standpoint, how are you helping the consumer navigate through all this great content that they have access to? Nick, since you're on the screen, let's start with you.
Yeah, I would say it comes down to programming. I mean, that's what we do at Wave. You know, we program specifically for Gen Z because it's about discovery and finding things that you're interested in that you normally wouldn't in this new day and age. So it's discovery, and so it's a lot dependent on the algorithm, right? We all depend on it in one way or the other. We sign into Facebook, there's an algorithm, Instagram, algorithm, Netflix, on and on and on. So it's kind of it's on us as a company to do all the right things to navigate how the algorithm works across platform and make sure that we're getting our content in the hands of the right people. And essentially for us, it's our fans, because then they'll interact with us, they'll engage with us, and that's how we kind of bring that brand reputation that'll go on.
Okay, great. Jake, what are your thoughts on helping the consumer navigate through all the sea of content?
Of course. No, I mean, there's a lot of content out there, right? It's only growing. And I mean, you see these services like Just Watch and Real Good. I mean, I use them myself, right? You know, I want to watch a movie. Where do I go to find it? And there are certainly technologies that exist to support that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about data. You know, a lot of what Nick said, right, around algorithms and how to personalize and suggest and program content. A lot of it's driven by performance data. You know, what is working on a platform, what is not. Some platforms provide that information, some don't, right? And I think that at Premier, you know, we have an aggregation business where we work with clients and help them to get their content onto various platforms. And we're actively working with the platforms, getting feedback from them. They're telling us, you know, what's working, what's not. What are we looking for and what are we not looking for? Sometimes that's seasonal, sometimes that's trend-based, right? And so we're then that kind of broker of information to serve as that, you know, central point so that we can instruct our clients, you know, don't waste time or money here. Look at these different markets, or look international, or look at this type of distribution method. And really it's about the information, it's the data, and ultimately having that full circle loop of how is the money flowing? What is that business model so that you can continue to invest in the right places going forward?
Great. Gail, what are your thoughts on how to help our consumers find the content they want to watch?
Sorry, did you say Gail? I had an internet.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I guess that's Gail.
I didn't hear that. So, I mean, it's a little bit different being, we're not a platform, but we started our channel called Snarled on YouTube. We now have over 2 million subscribers. That was really the core of our audience. And it was a channel focused on kind of a young 13 to 24-year-old female. And we were creating content for that and growing pretty quickly and really getting some traction. And so whenever we would go to launch, so my goal was to be every other place I could be where I could continue to capture and grow that same demo and that same audience. So when new platforms would launch, we would, you know, kind of go there and test the waters and see if we were acting. Snap is a good example. It makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of people in our demographic there. But I would always go back to my base and my, you know, very highly engaged YouTube audience and really use them to, you know, help me market that I was going to be somewhere else, right? And always engaging with them and telling them, these are my plans. This is what's going to happen. Hey, check us out. We have a new podcast. Check us out. We're on Snapchat. And so trying to actually bring them along and help us on that journey. We had 2 data points I thought were super interesting. So we launched a podcast from an existing video series. It was kind of a spin-off of these ghost stories. It was animated on YouTube, and we were going to use the audio, turn it into a half-hour podcast. I put a notice up on the YouTube channel. 40%, I said, go check out our new podcast launching this week. I thought, I'm not sure this demographic is going to listen to a podcast, but we'll find out. And 40% of the people responded and went over and checked it out and said, great, I love your new podcast.
Wow.
So for me, it's about having a really engaged audience that I am constantly talking to and communicating. When we launched on Tubi, I put a big sign up on the community tab and said, hey, check us out. We're now on Tubi. I was shocked at the response I got. Oh my God, I love Tubi. It's amazing. I watch it all the time. My mom has it. I'm so excited I can watch it now on the television. You know, we hear a lot. And we use our kind of platforms where we already are to help us launch on other platforms and to get the feedback from our audience about what they think and see if they're going there and, you know, see if we can reach what we know, who we know our fans, our audience is in those other places. So that's kind of how we tend to navigate, is, you know, through a constant kind of communication, social media strategy with our audience, wherever they are, wherever we meet.
Yeah, great. Those are great examples. Yeah, obviously social and any other engagement channels that you can use.
I like that. I got a chance to see that firsthand, so I'd love to. I mean,
Javon, build on that.
I mean, look, I think Gail, you made the great point. Great point. The fans will dictate where they want your content. So I think a lot of the, you know, the delineation of the content delivery system driven by the fans that want content. Different fans want different content on different platforms, right? Gamers are watching Twitch and watching Facebook Live, and so they're in the Facebook gaming program and watching long live streams. You know, I'm stuck at home with my 2 kids. I'm watching Sam the Cooking Guy on YouTube, right? I want a 10-minute YouTube video for me to figure out how to make dinner, right? And I think, you know, people want different content on different platforms, and the fact that we have so many different platforms allows us to speak to different demographics in different ways. So I think it's such a great time for content delivery. And I think, to Gail's point, how she's able to move different audience to different you know, platforms based upon the content delivery system, I think is really the way that you are successful in this new era. If you want to play in the different places, you got to figure out how the different places operate and what different demographics you're going after in those different places. And that's the way to really be successful.
Okay, great. And James, let's round out this part of the discussion.
Yeah, maybe I'll try to put a technology spin on that. I see kind of 3 things that are happening. That's well, it's a grand experiment. We'll see how successful things are. But on this topic, one is the D2C, the direct-to-consumer push that's happening. You know,
Right.
Again, if we look backwards to the earlier days of streaming, you would find the same content on multiple OTT services, platforms, etc., in the same region. So it was very difficult to determine where the best place to watch it or where it actually is showing. Whereas the direct-to-consumer is going to be very clear. You're going to watch, you know, Disney content on a Disney platform. You're going to YouTube content will be there, as many have stated. So I think that is helping to shore up some of that activity. Also, I think we continue to refine how content is created so that it's actually being delivered over streaming. So the fewer proprietary streaming formats that are actually in use today, you know, unifying around some common formats. I see a lot of potential with things like CMAF. Again, what that will do is it'll allow content to be processed in a standard way, and it will allow for the aggregation of content and distribution to consumers a lot easier. And that we're starting to see that. You mentioned, Steve, like Amazon, you know, it's almost an all-in-one thing, but that's specifically an app. Obviously, Apple's got their Apple TV. Over at Xperi, with our merger with TiVo has a very similar feature that doesn't come with some of the closed ecosystem that some of those others have, where it's essentially you have an app that gives you the discoverability of both live and on-demand content, and then it will deep link to the appropriate platform from there. So yeah, those are a few things that I kind of see that will help the discoverability. But there's so much content, there's going to continue to need to be more refinement as we move forward. But it's a good growth area for everybody. Yeah,
no doubt. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we have about 10 10 to 12 minutes or so left in our discussion time has flown by here. I want to pivot to the title of our panel, which is the future of content. And you all are going to look into your crystal balls, and we're going to come back in 5 years and hold you all to this, so no pressure. For each of you, where do you see content pivoting from here? You can talk about it from whatever perspective you like. Is it from a video quality technical perspective? Is it from a format perspective, long form versus short form? Is it different content areas we're going to explore? Is it interactivity? Is it AR, VR? Is it other types of interactivity where the consumer can become much more involved in the content besides just a lean back experience? So, James, you're on the screen now, so we're going to back to you. What is the future content look like from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a continuation of what we're starting to see happen now. And the pandemic, everyone's mostly stuck at home, is accelerating that. If we look at devices, I think that's a key thing. People want content everywhere. They want it in the bathroom, they want it in the kitchen, they want it on their mobile phone, they want it in their car, etc. But what I see there is the devices themselves are essentially becoming very standardized. It's the same content, and no one wants to produce unique content for a mobile experience versus a connected TV. The key difference there is going to be the form factor and the features that come with each one of those different types of devices. But the feature set is going to become common. I also think that there's going to be continued improvement technology-wise in the user experience of that content. Okay, there's going to be more things to provide a more immersive, higher quality experience to the consumer, no matter what device it is. So it'll be optimized at the device level to what actually needs to, what the user experience is. And I think a lot of that's going to include things like machine learning and artificial intelligence that's going to be utilized there, both on the content creation side as well as on the device and edge side, as far as how users experience that content. So talk to you all in 5 years on whether that all proves to be true.
All right, we'll check back with you then. Jake, your thoughts on the future?
Of course. No, I mean, I think that, the first thing that comes to mind, like, is in the, description around content length, content type. I mean, I think content will continue to get shorter. I don't think it's going to get longer. You look at the Gen Z and the kid generation, people are on YouTube. There's a few minute length content, and I think that will just continue to proliferate. I'm very big on interactivity and social. I think those are going to be huge drivers of the content viewing experience. From an interactivity perspective, you look at like gaming platforms like Twitch, where there's overlays, there's excitement, there's things happening on screen. It's more of a two-way experience when you're watching that. Even, like Amazon X-Ray, right? Like you click the button and it tells you who's on the screen. The Food Network, overlay where you can, buy the products. Like, I think those kinds of elements are really interesting. And they all feed into, to me, that social part of the experience too, where we've seen the new watch parties that have all come out with the different viewing experiences. You've got, of course, COVID people can't get together. So there's, that community and connectedness that crosses geographic boundaries that I think is really interesting. And to me, like, I'm kind of a fanboy on like the AR and VR side of things. I think remains to be seen when and how those make a splash, what the killer apps are for each of those. AR has a huge market. We saw Apple's AR announcement with Apple TV Plus that I think is really interesting about like, overlaying new components to the viewing experience to, again, move it from passive to interactive. And on the VR side, I don't know if the current incantation of watching a movie with a headset is what's going to be the big thing in 5 years. I don't know if that's it, but I get excited about virtual worlds and, you know, the metaverse and the Ready Player One and Snow Crash and that side of things. And if I'm a digital if I put a headset on, I have a digital avatar and I'm in a virtual environment and I go into a virtual movie theater with people all around the world, what does that look like? What's the distribution method there? What's the business model? How does that really take place? I think the people that can be well positioned to take advantage of that are going to be in a good spot for the future of content and how the future, you know, generations consume things.
Great, that's a great overview. Nick, what are your thoughts on the future?
I guess for mine, I guess it's a low, medium, high. I guess I'll go with. So for low, I think it's algorithm. I think we all spend too much time searching. So I think that just needs to get better in the short term. Medium, I think, is what Jake touched on, which is interactivity. I think watch parties for sure. You know, I would love to, my mom's in New York, I'm in Venice, so I'd love to be like, hey, watch this really quick. Let's watch together. Put it up on the screen, and it's very seamless. And gaming as well, you know, gaming with, you know, my cousins who are over in the UK, like on FIFA and NBA 2K for sure. And I think the high, I'll also take Jake's, you know, talking to a couple of companies already about avatars and what does that look like when you're walking around this kind of virtual world. And one thing you're walking into a movie theater, have a movie experience. Next thing you're walking into a concert and you're listening to music, and then you're walking into a sporting event and you're front row at the NBA playoffs like Oculus is doing now. So those would be my big three on like where I think it's all going.
Okay. Javon?
Yeah, I think kind of to dovetail on the point I kind of made in the beginning, I think that you're going to see a stronger one-to-one kind of development process for physical product based upon content. I think that's the big opportunity. Obviously, Disney's #1 consumer products company in the world. You're going to see that really ramp up. And what we've been doing, I mean, I'll give you an example right now. Umbrella Academy launched this summer, one of the biggest, most streamed shows, and we launched an Umbrella Academy card game on Kickstarter at the same time as the Umbrella Academy show. And what was unique about it is we allowed over the 30 days the fans on Kickstarter to kind of develop and tweak the game, review the game. We put it up online and allowed them to play it on this platform called Tabletopia, where they can tweak it. And we've tweaked it over the last 30 days. The campaign's been highly successful. It closes on Friday, and the game delivers for Christmas. So I think you're going to see that kind of one-on-one, kind of like, here's the show, here's the thing that you can actually make with the show, and actually get a physical product. And I think that's going to be the next evolution. We have another thing where we did a creator put a digital mask where he can talk to the masses called the Jabber Mask, and the video went viral, and we're making the mask. So I think you're going to start to see that a lot more as consumer products and D2C get stronger. You're going to start to see some products that are really not just the one-way advertising to you, but we can create this together through these platforms.
Great. I want to get to Gail to kind of wrap up this part of the discussion. We do have some questions stacked up. I'm going to throw out to the panel before we end today. So I will get to some of those questions, I promise. But Gail, the last word on this part.
I just want to say that I am with Javon this whole way. We are going to see, what I was going to say is we are going to see the lines of creator and consumer continue to blur. Because if you just, you know, spend 5 minutes on TikTok, you can see, you know, we've seen that since the advent of any online, you know, kind of social, since Snapchat and stuff, but who is the creator and who is the consumer are constantly blurring, whether it's just creating videos, copying videos, creating, you know, who's creating the games, the creators or the game makers, you know, it's all blurring and becoming one. And I think that's only going to increase. I mean, in one of the series I do that we started, it was a storytelling series. We got so many people writing to us about their stories, their own ghost stories. We just said, we're going to use all your stories and put them in our show. So it's just a virtuous circle for everybody that you are continuing to blur those lines between creator and consumer, because everybody has access to these tools and everybody is engaged on a level of in this creative process, which is to me the real game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. If any of you can predict over the next 90 days who's going to own TikTok in the US, surprise.
I'll give you a call.
It seems to be everyone has thrown their hat into the ring on that. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
I got to a question here. I'll throw it out to whoever wants to answer. It's from Jesse. It kind of goes along with some of what Jake was talking about as far as the interactivity of content. The question was, now that Netflix has successfully experimented with choose your own adventure, and Jesse cites Black Mirror and Bandersnatch as examples of that. Will other companies in the OTT space kind of follow kind of that interactivity, build your own story, that type of content? And do the top OTT services, they reference Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Disney Plus, well, they have an advantage from a technical standpoint in being able to kind of implement those kind of interactive features. So I'll throw it out to, we have Jake on the screen. Let's throw it to Jake, and then anyone else wants to pitch in.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Jesse. And I mean, I hope I'll start with that we come out with more content like this. I think that, I love the Bandersnatch experience. We've seen video game companies been doing this for a long time, where you can make decisions throughout the gameplay, and then there's like 20 to 30 different endings based on decisions that you make, right? And you think about that storyboarding process, it's just fascinating. And I think it gets down into that interactive discussion that we're having and the personalization, where you can kind of share throughout the journey and you have your own unique experience, especially when you're thinking about a YouTuber or a social media brand or something that you can share alongside with an audience or a fan base. That's really powerful. And I think that's really interesting. As far as, I think that there's actually going to be startups that will innovate in this space. I think that it's going to take a different mindset and approach, a different, leaner technology stack, and a quicker team that can pivot and make quick development decisions and do something from a different perspective. It's going to be a younger generation type that's going to innovate in this area, and then eventually they'll get acquired, or people will copy them, right? We see that all the time. But I think that this will happen. How big it is, I'm not sure, because I don't know if it has mass appeal, but I think that it will have a place in the people that want to have that more interactive experience.
Great. Anyone else want to jump in on that question?
I would, to the technology side that Jesse was hinting at there, all of those big companies have I would say basically parity technology-wise. And what they can offer. But to Jake's point, I do think that kind of level of interactive content particularly will likely be driven by smaller sources, just because those big companies have a different level of consideration as to how they're getting content out there, and the level of production that needs to be done to do an interactive piece is different than trying to get the next Marvel movie, for example, to 150 countries in multiple languages. So,
okay. Well, Eric, if you allow me to squeeze in one more question, I know our time is pretty much up. I have a question from Alex. What will it take for an SVOD, an AVOD, and let's throw in transactional OTT services to survive in the future with so many choices available to our video consumers? So who wants to take that one?
Sure, I'll say something.
All right, Nick.
Even though I was looking at Gail, I was like, I feel like Gail wants to take this one.
Gail wants to jump all over that.
So I'll be quick. I think it just comes down to marketing, right? There's so many, and it's going to take, where will your fans go, right? If you have YouTube-centric fans and revenue is important, you're going to make a certain split on YouTube. So if you're going to have an AVOD or SVOD that is either going to pay you handsomely for that audience, or they want to, do the rev share fee, then is that rev share going to be worth it to move your fans somewhere else? So marketing is, and good deal making is what I think. And I feel like Gail has something.
Teeing it up for you, Gail.
Oh, no, I was just nodding my head. I think, no, you're absolutely right. It's one of the things that we have found. We have a younger audience, so we do better on ad-supported platforms. They do not have a credit card to lay out for every new platform that comes along. And that's why they're like, I watch Tubi at my mom's house. They know where they can watch content and what they can do. So I think that marketing and really understanding who your consumer is, who your audience is, and where they will go, what they will do, how they will watch, who they will watch with. All of those things will be, of utmost importance.
I think that it's also like the definition of what is survive, right? Like I think that there may not be much room for mega billion-dollar SVODs to exist and succeed, right? But there can be more passion, interest-based, smaller audience platforms in all of these arenas that are very successful, right? To build a 50, 100 million, whatever user base, whatever revenue base business is awesome and impressive. And you look at the Crunchyrolls, you look at different, even Gail's platform, right? Where you have an audience and a community that loves a certain type of content that is like-minded, that will pay, or either through money or through advertising, to watch that, right? And people will subscribe to Netflix, but if they love sports or news or, anime, right? They're going to seek that out, and there's still room for those services to exist, given that you market properly, that you have the data, and you know how to serve content to the people that are, your audience that you're targeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Yes, different levels of success and what survival is and what growth is. Well, with that, I think we're going to have to wrap it up here. Our time has gone by way too fast, but I appreciate Gail, James, Nick, Javon, and Jake for joining me for the future content. And again, thank you to OTT.X for the invitation. And I guess I'll be throwing it back to Eric now.